Hello everyone, you are watching Eagle News America. I'm Ace Ramirez, coming to you from Washington. It's December 2, 2020. Tonight, we have updates from our correspondents across North America. Thomas Likeness in Edmonton, Alberta.
You can expect year-end holiday celebrations to be different this year.
Myla Simbulan in Sicklerville, New Jersey.
Here in Pennsylvania, executive actions by Governor of Pennsylvania, Gov Wolf, that will support communities impacted by flooding.
May Ann Manzano Guerzon in Sicklerville, New Jersey.
Governor Murphy deters non-essential out-of-state travel, gives COVID-19 updates.
Randy Bayuga in Parisburg, Ohio.
Ohio prepares to receive first shipment of COVID-19 vaccine. Articles of impeachments filed against Governor Dewine.
We also have Maricar Borja in North Hills, California.
Los Angeles records new daily high in positive COVID-19 cases.
Mesa Membrera in Sacramento reports about COVID-19 cases in California rising daily, forcing the state to prepare for a possible second stay-at-home order. And for business news, Bobby Soriano reports about UPS halting order pickup from several major retailers, and another streaming service is joining the fray. Plus an in-depth virtual roundtable discussion with EBC friend, clinical psychologist Dr. Sydney Fontanares about seasonal affective disorder or SAD, more commonly referred to as winter blues. Our coverage begins now. First, an overview of today's COVID-19 numbers. According to the Coronavirus Resource Center of Johns Hopkins University in Medicine, as of 6 p.m. Eastern Time Wednesday, December 2, the number of cases of COVID-19 reported worldwide is now more than 64,097,000. Top three on the list of countries with recorded cases: US 13.7 million, India with 9.4 million, Brazil 6.3 million. To date, more than 1,485,000 have succumbed to this virus. The US leads the countries with the most number of COVID-19 related deaths with more than 271,000. Brazil is next with more than 173,000, and India with more than 138,000. Saying that the year 2020 was different compared to previous years is an understatement. The list of things done another way is endless. Add to that is how the season celebrations will unfold. In Edmonton, Bureau Chief Thomas Likeness joins us tonight.
Thank you, Ace. Another year almost gone. Hey, we're into December. Can't believe it. And it's the holiday season for many. You know, the year-end gatherings and celebrations, well, it used to be the norm as we bid goodbye to the past 12 months and welcomed in the dawn of a new year. But with the pandemic, people are being told to forego the big parties, you know, office parties, the potlucks at work, all things of the past. And those who do celebrate are being advised, keep it small. About a week ago, the survey company Leger asked both Canadians and Americans about their holiday plans. Here's the findings. Canadians, it seems, to be more cautious about how they're going to celebrate the holiday. 71% saying they've actually changed their plans as a result of the pandemic. South of the border, Americans pretty much split on that question. 51% say things will change. 49%, yeah, it's business as usual. I'm going to spend time with family and friends. But just how afraid are you of getting infected at a social gathering? 45% of Canadians, 42% of Americans say they fear being exposed to COVID-19 at holiday gatherings with family and friends. 60% of Canadians say absolutely there should be a total ban on holiday gatherings, except for people who live in the same household. But ask that same question in the United States, you'll find that Americans are evenly split on that. Well, in the next week or so, provincial governments across Canada will be revising their restrictions. Now, those revisions will be based on how many new cases of COVID are being reported, what the hospitalization rates are like, death rates, that sort of thing. And the way things are going, I don't think anything's going to be loosened. Likely, they will be tightened. So what are your plans to ring in the new year? As we augur our way through the last month of the year, I wish you all good health. Remember to take care of others and take care of yourselves. Stay home, stay safe, and stay tuned to Eagle News for accurate and balanced coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic and other current affairs. In Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Ace.
Thank you so much, Thomas Likeness from Edmonton, Alberta. Flooding in Pennsylvania has caused added burden to its residents amid an ongoing pandemic. Here's Bureau Chief Myla Simbulan in Swarthmore to share with us what steps are being taken to address the issue. Myla.
Thanks, Ace. As communities across Pennsylvania increasingly experience flooding caused by intense short-duration storms due to climate change, Governor Tom Wolf today announced executive actions that will support communities that are impacted by flooding. Take a look.
In order to protect Pennsylvanians and mitigate the worsening dangers of climate change, I'm announcing 3 steps that my administration can take right now and will take right now to help Pennsylvania communities improve hazard mitigation planning and to protect their residents. It's not restore Pennsylvania, but it's the best we can do right now. First, I'm going to charge the State Planning Board. The State Planning Board, which exists, has been in existence for some time, with developing a series of recommendations and best practices relative to land use, to planning, zoning, and stormwater management, with an emphasis on reducing the incidence of flash flooding that impacts residents and affects residents and businesses all across the Commonwealth. That's the first thing. Second, I'm going to charge the State Planning Board with establishing state goals and strategic investment principles regarding infrastructure and hazard mitigation planning. Third, I'm going to institutionalize state goals. All of us will institutionalize state goals and strategic investment principles across all state agency funding programs. We ought to be working together to make sure that we're not, again, working at cross purposes when we talk about how we're going to build a new highway or build new pipes. We want to make sure that we're actually addressing the most pressing problems facing Pennsylvanians when it comes to things like flood mitigation. These 3 steps will help us take a regional and forward-thinking approach to mitigating the dangers of climate change.
According to a 2015 Department of Environmental Protection Climate Impacts Assessment, Pennsylvania has seen a 10% increase in average yearly precipitation over the last century. By 2050, the average yearly precipitation is projected to increase by another 8%. For many parts of the Commonwealth, 2018 was the wettest year on record, with heavy rains demonstrating that our flood mitigation planning and infrastructure has not kept up with changing precipitation patterns. Many of the storms we are experiencing due to climate change are intense over a very short duration. Due to the short duration of these types of storms, the damages from these events rarely reach the thresholds for the Commonwealth to request federal disaster aid assistance. There are 2 programs within the Federal Emergency Management Agency that can provide federal aid after flooding disaster: public assistance and individual assistance. Public assistance provides reimbursements to state, county, and local governments and eligible nonprofits for costs associated with response and recovery efforts. Each county included in a public assistance request must meet a cost threshold based on population, and in turn, the Commonwealth overall must meet a threshold of $19.5 million in damage costs. Individual assistance includes a wide range of programs for homeowners and renters, including cash grants, housing, or home repair assistance. In 2018, in Pennsylvania, more than 5,000 homes were damaged in a series of incidents, but no single incident met the threshold. That year, there was also approximately $63 million in public infrastructure damages alone that were not reimbursable through federal disaster programs. Here's Dennis Davin, Secretary of the Department of Community and Economic Development, to tell us about the role of DCED on this issue. Take a look.
DCED is willing and able to do whatever it takes, working in partnership with our sister agencies to strengthen our ability to prepare and respond when severe weather strikes. Our State Planning Board will commit to identifying tangible goals and strategic investment principles that can be implemented across the administration to promote smart, best practices to protect our communities and businesses. The board, which is made up of 25 members, including citizens, legislators, and State Department heads, including studies demographic, economic, and development trends and prepares strategic plans for the Commonwealth. The board works with DCED to prepare the State Land Use and Growth Management Report every 5 years. The report studies development patterns and local government land use planning and makes recommendations for state agency action, regulations, and programs.
Major rehabilitations to Pennsylvania's 120 flood control facilities, such as flood walls, levees, and channel improvements, are the responsibility of the Commonwealth. Of those, only 68 of those facilities meet the eligibility criteria established by the Army Corps of Engineers Emergency Rehabilitation Program. The rest are ineligible for rehabilitation coverage under this program. That means costly repairs to these facilities after flood events would be borne by the sponsor municipality and the Commonwealth. Additionally, as land is developed for residential and commercial use, stormwater runoff can cause stream impairment. In Swarthmore, Pennsylvania, Myla Simbulan, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Ace.
Thank you so much, Myla Simbulan, Swarthmore, Pennsylvania. Still in the fight against the COVID-19 resurgence, New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy discourages non-essential out-of-state travel. In Sicklerville, Eagle News correspondent May Ann Manzano-Guerzon reports.
In New Jersey today, Governor Phil Murphy announced the changes in the advisory regarding travel as new COVID cases, deaths, and hospitalizations continue to increase. Take a look.
Also now formally changing our advisory regarding travel. First and foremost, and this is the most important point, no one should be traveling out of state for anything beyond that which is essential for your daily life, commuting to work or seeking medical treatment, for example. And we understand that New Jerseyans may need to travel into neighboring states, such as New York and Pennsylvania, for shopping, worship, or similar daily or transient activities. But if you do travel outside our immediate region, or if you are coming into New Jersey from another state, we strongly encourage you to observe a 14-day self-quarantine period and at the right point get tested. There are very few exemptions to this advisory, including frontline healthcare workers, members of law enforcement, and active duty military personnel traveling to New Jersey on orders or directives, for example. Otherwise, we're asking everyone to simply not travel unless it is for an essential purpose. We can never forget that behind every one of the numbers that we report each day is a human face, including those of the more than 17,000 New Jerseyans who have died because of this virus, either confirmed or probable. And today we are adding, with the heaviest of hearts, 56 more names to the rolls of those whose deaths are now confirmed to have been from COVID-19 complications. That confirmed total is now, as you can see, 15,309, and the number of probable deaths has been revised to 1,836. If you need a reason to fight through this pandemic fatigue, and you've got fatigue, so do we get it, but you got to keep fighting, or to keep masking up, or to continue maintaining social distances, or to not crowd around a bar, or in this season when we want nothing more than to be together, to feel good and politely declining an invitation to an upcoming indoor holiday party.
To learn more about New Jersey's COVID situation, visit covid19.nj.gov. And for weather update Ace, it's now 8:40 7 here in New Jersey, and it's currently clear. It is now 37 degrees Fahrenheit or 3 degrees Celsius. The high today was forecast as 45 degrees Fahrenheit or 7 degrees Celsius. In Sicklerville, New Jersey, May and Manzano Garzon, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Ace.
Thank you so much, May Ann Manzano Garzon from Sicklerville, New Jersey. When we come back, updates from our Eagle News correspondents in Parisburg, Ohio, North Hills, and Sacramento, California, and today's business news. This is Eagle News America. Stay with us.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Ace Ramirez in Washington. Stories from Ohio tonight. Ohio joins other states in preparing to receive their first COVID-19 vaccine shipments. And articles of impeachment have been filed against Ohio Governor Mike Dewine, accusing him of mishandling the coronavirus situation in the state. In Parisburg, Randy Bayuga joins us this evening. Randy.
Thank you, Ace. Governor Mike Dewine is hoping to receive the first shipment of COVID-19 vaccine, potentially by December 15th for the Pfizer vaccine and December 22nd for the Moderna vaccine. Ohio Department of Health participated in a nationwide end-to-end training that will be operated by the National Guard here in Ohio. Distribution of the vaccine was detailed months ago when they submitted their plan back in August to the CDC. The pre-positioning plans were released recently, identifying 10 sites to distribute the vaccine throughout Ohio. The sites were selected based on geography, population, and access to ultra-cold storage. Other sites will receive the vaccine shortly thereafter, after the pre-positioned sites have already started administering the vaccine. COVID-19 updates. Ohio delays in-person work at state-owned facilities due to increasing COVID-19 cases. COVID-19 continues to surge here. There are now 5,208 confirmed hospitalizations due to COVID-19. As of December 1st, there were already nearly 200 deaths reported for that 24-hour period. According to the data in coronavirusohio.gov, there are currently 437,928 confirmed cases of COVID-19, and in the last 24 hours, 7,835 new cases were added. 6,671 total deaths so far, and in the last 24 hours, an additional 123 were added. The Ohio key indicators are also probably understated, as the data is delayed due to the number of cases for the last 3 weeks. Processing the data has been slow due to the surge of many cases, and many cases are still need to be validated. Governor Mike Dewine states there is cause and effect to what we do. We can slow this down. The scariest thing is that there is no indication that we have plateaued. We haven't seen anything like this in the last 100 years. And in another battlefront, Governor Mike Dewine will be engaged in battle as 12 articles of impeachment was filed against him by his fellow Republicans, led by State Representative John Decker, and joined by State Representatives Nino Vitale, Candace Keller, and Paul Zeltwanger. Please watch this video from Representative John Decker's Twitter account.
Hey folks, John Becker here, State Representative from Claremont County, 65th House District. Today is November 30th, 2020, and I'm bringing to you the November edition of the Becker Report. You can find that at beckergop.com. Go out there and subscribe. You can also find my contact information at the end of this video. Hey, so first off, today finally the articles of impeachment have been filed officially with the clerk's office in Columbus, the Ohio House. And I am asking Speaker Cupp to refer those to the Federalism Committee to begin the impeachment hearings. I am the chairman of the Federalism Committee. So with that, I can ensure we'll have probably, I would envision, 2 hearings. And then, hopefully vote it out of committee. That's the equivalent of an indictment when you have an impeachment. And then we go to the full House floor for a final vote, and then sent over to the Senate for a trial. We'll see what happens from there.
The impeachment is based on how the governor handled the coronavirus pandemic, stating that it was illegal for the governor to impose quarantine and close businesses, and complaints about job losses and business closures. This is not the first time the governor has faced an impeachment threat this year. In August, discussions of 10 articles of impeachment, one issue for improperly shutting down the presidential primary in March, also led by Representative John Decker. Perrysburg, Ohio, Eagle News, Ronnie Bayuga. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Ace.
Thank you so much, Randy Bayuga from Perrysburg, Ohio. COVID-19 cases in Los Angeles are spiking, pushing health officials to sound the alarm for residents to take immediate action if they want the situation to not get any worse. North Hills Eagle News correspondent Maricar Borja has the details.
Thank you, Ace. Los Angeles records new daily high in positive COVID-19 cases with 7,593 and current hospitalizations at 2,316 as the total cases in the county surpasses 400,000 to date. The Los Angeles Public Health Department announces these new record highs yesterday as the coronavirus infects the county at an increased rate than ever experienced since the start of the pandemic. The previous daily high of positive cases was 6,124, which was only reached last week. These numbers and statistics reflect that the virus is spreading at a rapid rate. Barbara Ferrer, Public Health Director, states, "Today, Tuesday, December 1, 2020, is the worst day thus far of the COVID-19 pandemic in Los Angeles County. However, it will likely not remain the worst day of the pandemic in Los Angeles County. That will be tomorrow, and the next day, and the next as cases, hospitalizations, and deaths increase. Every resident and every business needs to take immediate action if we are to dampen this alarming surge. We are in the middle of an accelerating surge in a pandemic of huge magnitude. This is not the time to skirt or debate the safety measures that protect us, because we need every single person to use every tool available to stop the surge and save lives." The current hospitalizations of 2,316 is also at a record high, breaking the previous one of 2,232 attained in July during the last surge of cases. The number of current hospitalizations has risen almost daily since November 1, when the total number of current COVID-19 hospitalizations on that day was at 799. According to the LA Public Health Department, residents under 50 years of age comprise 72% of new COVID-19 cases. Statistics show that the younger age group of people is making up the biggest number of people that are infectious with the virus. In addition to the updated safer at home restrictions from both the state and county levels, public health officials warn residents to stay home as much as possible for the next 3 weeks, remaining with only their immediate household and staying away from non-essential activities. And for those who physically go to work on site, the practice of wearing face coverings and keeping 6 feet physical distancing at all times are habits that must be maintained. In North Hills, California, Maricar Borja, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Ace.
Thank you so much, Maricar Borja, North Hills, California. It's time for business news. UPS is halting order pickup from several major retailers. Plus, another streaming service is joining the fray. Business desk correspondent Bobby Soriano files this report.
U.S. markets have closed. Here are your latest business headlines. UPS has temporarily halted the pickup of orders from several major U.S. retailers in an attempt to prevent overwhelming of its shipping network during the holiday season. According to an exclusive report by the Wall Street Journal, UPS notified its drivers over the busy holiday weekend to stop picking up packages from several major retailers. Despite UPS and rival shipping company FedEx both already raising their shipping rates to manage demand, UPS took the extraordinary step of halting pickups as shopping has shifted overwhelmingly to the online marketplace, with the National Retail Federation estimating a 44% jump in online shopping within the past 5 days, including Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Meanwhile, as the cold weather approaches and outdoor restrictions appear to be returning, families can now look forward to another streaming service, because apparently you can never have enough of them. Discovery owner of content that's aired on TLC, the Food Network, Animal Planet, and its own channel will be offering a new streaming service focused on its foodie and home improvement content. Discovery hopes that customers will look to its streaming service, titled Discovery Plus, as a reality show complement to the fiction-heavy Netflix. The service will launch on January 4 and will cost $4.99 a month with ads and $6.99 without. Discovery has also followed the footsteps of Disney, striking a deal with Verizon, wherein Verizon subscribers will receive their streaming service free for a whole year. U.S. indices were mostly flat today, as the markets took a breather from the strong gains yesterday. Reporting from New York, Bobby Soriano, Eagle News, we live in interesting times.
When we come back, EBC friend and clinical psychologist Dr. Sydney Fontanares joins our virtual roundtable discussion on seasonal affective disorder. Eagle News America will return in a moment. You are watching Eagle News America. I'm Ace Ramirez in Washington. According to Mental Health America, women compose 4 out of 5 who have seasonal affective disorder or seasonal depression. The critical age for seasonal depression is between 20 to 30 years old or earlier. Up to 10% of the population has seasonal depression, depending on where they live. To add to that, the further you are from the equator, the more likely you are at risk for seasonal depression. To help us understand this more, we have clinical psychologist Dr. Sydney Fontanares. Dr. Fontanares, this kind of depression affecting about 10% of the population is not something to take lightly. What is SAD, or what is seasonal affective disorder, or otherwise known as winter blues? What are the common signs and symptoms of SAD? Doctor.
Hi, Ace. Thank you again for having me. So SAD stands for seasonal affective disorder, which is a clinical diagnosis. Actually, it's a subsection of major depressive disorders. So we have major depressive disorder, and then we have different kinds of depression, and one of them is SAD. Affective, in a clinical sense, means feelings, mood. So when this is happening, when you're experiencing SAD, your mood changes. You're feeling a little bit off. And this will look like depression. And this will happen when the seasons change. There is winter onset, and then there's also, I believe, summer or spring onset. But the one that we'll be discussing today is winter onset seasonal affective disorder. This is when fall turns into winter, or it even starts at the beginning of summer. We experience these symptoms, and then we start to also notice when winter turns into spring and summer, these symptoms seem to disappear. This is sometimes can also be called winter blues. That's a little bit what maybe the majority of individuals experience. About 10% experience mild symptoms, and then 6% of the population will experience more severe symptoms.
Well, Doctor, you said not just all along. I thought it's just applicable to the winter season. So it's not just winter, it's applicable to all seasons.
Yeah, yes. So specifically, this kind of depression will happen when the seasons change. When we experience major depressive disorder, this is kind of all throughout the year. But what is triggering SAD is the change of season.
So can this happen to anyone without any hereditary history?
Oh, absolutely. There is. So in terms of I guess developing SAD, there is a connection to hereditary component. So you're more likely to develop SAD if maybe a relative or maybe your parents have either major depressive disorder or any of the other mood disorders like bipolar, 1 or 2. You're more likely to experience it. And like you mentioned at the beginning too as well, women are more likely to experience it. People who live farther away from the equator, who have less daylight time, yep. So you're like Alaska. We see a lot of this in Washington State, Oregon. Once winter starts coming up, or it's starting right after fall, we do start to see the numbers increase of people experiencing depression. Also, those who have depression already that they're experiencing, they might also experience an exacerbation of symptoms.
I see. So, doctor, can you enlighten us? What causes SAD?
Like with many mental illnesses, there isn't one factor. There are many factors. There's also a lot of different theories behind SAD, as well as many other mental illnesses. Researchers, they gather data and they try to, make the most sense out of it. What we've noticed is that there are like 3 components for SAD. One of them is just a change of our neurotransmitters. So there is, what they're seeing is that there's a drop in what we call serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter that regulates our emotion. We see this in major depressive disorder. We see a drop in serotonin, and that starts to affect our mood. Another hormone or another bodily change that happens in SAD is also a change in melatonin, which is a hormone that our body produces, and it also regulates our sleeping. So one of the symptoms of SAD is hypersomnia, where you sleep more. And then with major depressive disorder, you sleep less, you sleep more, your sleeping patterns kind of all over the place. So serotonin, melatonin, and then there's been a little bit more research on the circadian rhythm. So our circadian rhythm is our internal body clock. It tells us when we wake up, when we go to sleep. And so when the seasons change, here in California, we have daylight savings time in occurrence with the change of seasons. So we get less daylight. I commute in the morning, I don't see the light, and then I commute back home and it's already dark. So when that changes, our circadian rhythm goes a little off. It kind of goes out of whack, and that's where we again start to experience some symptoms, mood changes. So plenty of people will experience that just because our bodies are so used to a particular rhythm.
So the internal body, you mentioned the internal body clock. Let's say I work at night. I'm the graveyard. So that may affect my mental health. I may experience SAD because of that.
Overall, your mental health will be affected if it doesn't totally follow your natural body clock. And in fact, there is an increase or a bigger number in individuals who do graveyard shift with mental health issues. So increase of depression, anxiety, that sort of stuff, because it's your body's trying to follow a natural rhythm, but we're kind of working against it. And we are seeing a lot more just because of the advances in technology, and we can kind of work all throughout the day and all throughout the evening.
Right. So talking about the symptoms of SAD, are these noticeable from the naked eye, from a layman's observer? Can we tell, let's say, a person is undergoing or experiencing SAD, or how is SAD diagnosed? Treatments.
Going to your original question, Ace, I would say it's not that obvious. Whenever I speak to a patient and I say SAD, I do get like a surprised look. I hear a lot of people haven't heard of it. They didn't even know our bodies kind of go in that kind of rhythm. Again, like you're kind of protected from like the seasons because of shelter and being able to go indoors and regulate the temperature. So being able to say that the seasons affect you is kind of an eye-opener for a lot of people. And even identifying a major depressive disorder, there's a whole spectrum as well. And you could be at the, mild symptoms and not really be able to identify that you're experiencing some sort of mood disorder. So some symptoms that you can experience, like I said, SAD looks very similar to depression because it is like a subclinical set of, or it's a sub-diagnosis of depression. But changes that you can see is changes in sleep, eating, also wanting to isolate. It could also get in the way of your thought pattern, having difficulty with concentrating and focusing. It can get in the way of work and doing school. That's when it starts to affect our schooling or going to school or homework, going to work. That's where we start to, when the red flags start to come up and we're like, this is probably a diagnosable issue right here. And so some specifics with SAD is that, like I mentioned, you're sleeping more, hypersomnia. There is also weight gain, which is because you're eating a lot more. So your eating pattern has changed. Something I just recently read was that there is a craving for carbs when you're experiencing SAD. So like your pastas, your bread, your all the kind of the white colored foods you're kind of drawn to during that time, and also isolating. I think they had written like hibernating. So I was like thinking like kind of you're experiencing like bear-like symptoms. And then of course your mood has changed. Maybe you're more irritable and more anxious or more sad.
Okay, doctor, hold on. Let me cut you right there. I have a lot more questions, and I believe the other correspondents have more questions later. We'll be back after the break and we'll discuss more about SAD. Thank you for enlightening us, Dr. Fontanara. Some of our viewers may be asking in their head right now, seasonal depression during a pandemic, how bad is that and how can we prevent it? Our virtual roundtable discussion continues in a moment. This is Eagle News America. Stay with us.
Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net25.
Hello there. Imagine Demi got the virus and she infected 2 more. And those 2 infected a lot more of people. And it goes on and on until it became an epidemic. But what if Demi stayed at home? Then those 2 wouldn't have contracted the virus. Then those people would have not been infected. This is not just your battle, it's everyone's, and you can be a huge help. Follow social distancing, or better yet, stay at home.
Lahat tayo'y naglalakbay, aking nakikita. Saan tayo tutungo, saan tayo pupunta? Hanggang saan aabot ang ating paghinga? Saan tayo tutungo, saan tayo pupunta?
This is Eagle News America. I'm Ace Ramirez. We are entering the winter season when SAD, or seasonal affective disorder, is said to be more prevalent. How likely and risky is it to develop this type of depression during a pandemic? As if the impact of the pandemic is not yet enough to negatively affect our mental health, what are the risks of combining this with seasonal affective disorder, or SAD? Doctor, can you tell us, how bad would it look if we combine these 2?
It would be pretty intense because as we had discussed earlier, Ace, we can see so many changes that's already happening for us with the seasons that have changed, or while the season had changed. And this is something that happens if you are diagnosed with SAD on a regular basis, right? There's kind of already a timeline that you follow. But with the pandemic on top, there isn't quite a clear timeline with pandemics or very big events. There's usually a beginning, middle, and end. And right now we're in the middle, and we don't know exactly what the end will look like. And that causes burnout for a lot of people, especially if maybe you're in the healthcare industry and are, needing to continue to work. We don't really, see that because there's a lot of unknowns. We don't know exactly where we can say, like, this is the end of the pandemic and we'll be okay again, right? So it's going to take a lot of mental energy, a lot of changes in our psychology, and it will exacerbate any symptoms that we already are experiencing. We call it pandemic depression because we've have been experiencing just a lot of changes and anxiety and depression since the pandemic had started. And again, like there isn't really an end that we can see or be able to pinpoint. Like there isn't like a date, like with seasonal affective disorder, we can say like, hey, maybe the summer, spring is a little bit better. But with the pandemic, it's a little bit harder. And so it's, again, like it's going to exacerbate a lot of things and make us. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned, you gave the scenario, what if the healthcare workers suffer both, right, during this pandemic, and then they experience SAD? We've defined SAD, who it affects, what triggers it. We painted the scenario in a pandemic. Please share some tips. How do we prevent SAD, or how do we strengthen our mental health?
So specifically speaking about SAD, there's been a lot of research using light exposure or light therapy. You would want to talk with your doctor first, because there are risks in utilizing a light box or an SAD lamp. It can, affect, I think, if you're taking a particular medication or if you have particular symptoms, or even like affect something with your eyes. But the idea with light therapy, like we had mentioned before, right, where SAD occurs or can be developed if we're not having enough sunlight, and that's what these lamps would, or these light boxes would help with. It's supposed to, like, it's a particular light bulb. There's also like tips on how long you should be utilizing the light box, even like the angle of the light box and how effective it can be. So talk to your doctor about that. Also being able to talk to them if there is any medication that can be utilized to help support you. And having these conversations early so you can prepare for when the seasons do change, and already having those conversations with your doctor. Also being able to what we call behavioral activation. This is something that we utilize with people who are experiencing major depressive disorder. If you're feeling down and unmotivated, you're gonna be stuck in that cycle, and you're gonna, that's gonna affect your sleep, that's gonna affect your daily routine. And so we, when I talk to my patient, I ask them to, name, your daily tasks, and being able to do that every day, even if you're not feeling 100% or even 50%, to still be able to do that and activate yourself. So you can, you really do have to be proactive in working through the depression and the symptoms.
But doctor, not that 4 out of 5 of our correspondents have SAD, but I'm pretty sure they've been taking notes, and they want to ask you questions about SAD. Let's start with Thomas. Tom, any questions for Dr. Fontenares?
Yes, I've got a couple, if I can be permitted to. First, do family doctors take this seriously? Because a lot of doctors are still very much on the science side of medicine and kind of leave out the art side of medicine. And the second one, quite a bit different. Have there been studies done on the economic cost of SAD?
Well, Thomas, I can't speak on the economic cost. I'm not totally familiar on that, but regarding family doctors, so I work in what's called a multidisciplinary treatment team. So I do work with medical doctors and do provide consultation. So I want to say that, family doctors are a little bit more informed about mental health in general and are getting more training around that. But certainly, it's going to take maybe a little bit of advocacy on your end as the patient to be able to bring this up. That's a way to be able to do that is to track yourself, to be able to, see even starting from summer to spring, being able to track any changes, any mood changes. And the thing with SAD, however, is that to receive the diagnosis, I believe you have to have, I think, 2 years, 2 consecutive years and experiencing those consistent symptoms. So being able to have an ongoing relationship with your family doctor to be able to continue to report these symptoms so they can support you.
All right, thank you, Doctor. Rani, any questions for Dr. Fontanarez?
Doctor, what about alternative types of treatment other than antidepressants? What recommendations do you have? I mean, like meditation and gratefulness. What do you have?
Sure. Alternative methods other than medication. Of course, as a psychologist, I always recommend talk therapy. Being able to work with a therapist. A therapy that I would recommend specifically for SAD is what we call CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, and that's where we take the thoughts that you have and what kind of behaviors you experience because of these thoughts. And usually negative thoughts will lead to depression and the behaviors of depression. And so we take those thoughts and try to challenge them or try to adjust them so they're healthy or more positive thoughts, but not to go into positive psychology, but being able to work on these thoughts so we can function a little bit more effectively. And of course, if therapy is not your thing, I always suggest being able to inform yourself, and I always encourage my patients to look for coping tools or coping mechanisms, and it could be meditation, expressing gratitude, any way to be able to move your body and get out and get the sun, specifically for SAD, is going to be important.
Great tips, Doc. Thank you so much. Maricar, do you have any questions for Dr. Fontanarez?
Yes, I do. Okay, so I'm a gerontology university student, meaning my field of study focuses on older adults. So my question is about seasonal depression amongst the older population. So how does seasonal depression, especially amidst the pandemic, disproportionately affect the older population, since they are typically vulnerable to, the impacts of social isolation and loneliness during this time? And what types of support can we give our older family members?
Very good question. Like we've talked about before too, like just the kind of the pandemic depression on top of any sort of SAD or depression that you're experiencing, we're going to see that exponentially with our older adults, and it's certainly happening, and especially because the pandemic is that's considered the vulnerable population. We are needing to keep our older patients isolated and quarantined or and safe. So if there's any way to be able to connect with them, any sort of like social support, I know FaceTime or having kind of like a video chat is not the same as having in-person visits, but that's kind of where we're at in trying to provide and support our more older patients. Any way that we can help them connect with a hobby or an activity that they can utilize while they are being isolated or by themselves will be also very important. Any way to kind of keep the mind active and positive.
Good tips, Doctor. Thank you. Myla, any questions for Dr. Fontanarez?
Firstly, Dr. Fontanarez, I'm just thank you for joining us, and this is really informative. My question is more for kids. Cabin fever, it's very common, especially with this pandemic. Is this related to depression or any type of depression?
I'm sorry, what was the first word? The
cabin fever.
Cabin fever. Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. With kids, especially at this time, the routine is totally off, right? They usually go to school, they hang out with their friends, they have a whole routine that's outside of the house. And now that, the pandemic is here and schools have, closed or they've opened or, there's virtual learning, and that there isn't quite like the similar routine that they thrive on. And kids, they thrive on social interactions and not needing to interact with their parents all day, right? So of course, when they're doing school at home, and also there's what we call like Zoom fatigue, or virtual meeting fatigue, where I believe there's a whole it takes a lot of mental energy to do like a virtual chat, kind of video chat, and that's what we're seeing with a lot of people, especially kids, and so of course they're going to feel a lot more irritable or anxious, staying at home and not being able to go out and socialize as usual and kind of expend that energy. So yeah, it's
Sorry. Thank you for addressing cabin fever. Last but not least, real quick question for Dr. Pantanares before we let her go. Mayanne?
Well, Ace, yes, I have a couple, but I guess I'll just limit it to one. We mentioned earlier that it's more women are more prone to SAD. Is there a study, doctor, why women are more prone to this? And I'll ask the second one. Is it a recurring thing, or is it something that we can cure permanently? Thank you, doctor.
Okay, real doctor, sorry, but
oh, it's totally fine. Thank you for again having me. So I am not totally aware of what the exact research is around why women are more, I guess, prone to SAD. We see these numbers too with major depressive disorder. Of women are more likely to develop depression versus many other mental illnesses. So I'll get back to you on that, but I don't have quite the answer exactly what the biology is behind that. But in terms of the second question of like whether or not we're able to cure it, like with many other all mental illnesses, there isn't like a surefire like cure-all. It's not like putting a band-aid or like a cast on like a broken bone. It does take maintenance. It does, what we see in treatment is being able to manage symptoms better is as kind of the improvement that we see with patients. So being able to identify it first and creating a treatment plan.
We will have a separate session with Dr. Pantanares. Pretty sure this will be another 2 hours with you, doctor. And thank you again. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and for discussing for us and with us the seasonal affective disorder. Although we discuss SAD, we do not end with a sad note. We continue to express our appreciation for our healthcare workers, first responders, and essential workers. You are our modern day heroes. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Pantanares. See you again next time. That is today's Eagle News America. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ace Ramirez. We live in interesting times.
The search for the best continues. Tagi sa Nanggaling Part 2 is now accepting audition entries. If you are 21 to 59 years old and have what it takes to be the next Tagi sa Nanggaling Grand Winner as a solo performer, duet, trio, band, or grouped act, submit your audition entries now. Just follow